Administration is looking to find a new path through the Russia investigations in an attempt to try to keep the GOP agenda afloat. But despite all of that upheaval, Trump's supporters are giving their president the benefit of the doubt. Joining me now to talk about it, Brad Woodhouse, former president of Americans United for Change and former DNC communications director, and Dallas Woodhouse, executive director of the North Carolina Republican Party. Gentlemen, start your engines and thank you much. Dallas, let me start with you. Mike Dubke, the communications director, is out. There's a war room now in the works. Some old names from the campaign are potentially coming back in action. Is this welcome news to you? Do you think the Trump agenda can actually get a restart with people like Corey Lewandowski and Dave Bossie in the room?
Well, of course, I used to work with Corey Lewandowski at Americans for Prosperity, and I'm a big fan. You know, I don't see anything concerning either way. I mean, they, White Houses typically have communications operations to deal with, some particular issue. The communications director himself is not exactly a household name. He's not somebody that obviously somebody that the press is familiar with, but he's not the face of the administration, so to speak. So I think these developments are fine. I think they are normal and routine, and I think we're moving forward. We're working on tax reform. We're working on health care, and the president had a great week overseas, and those are the important things.
Brad, you're chuckling.
I mean, he's got to be kidding. I mean, Hallie, if you listen to these apologists like my brother for this kleptocrat in the White House, they sound like Baghdad Bob. I mean, you have bombs falling all over this administration. You have the Kushner bomb, the Flynn bomb, the Carter Page bomb. It goes on and on and on. And they're sitting there saying, stay calm, all is well. This is a disaster for the White House. If you have people like Dave Bossie, who I know, and Corey Lewandowski going in the White House to run a war room to respond to these Russia investigations, all you're going to ever hear out of this White House is Russia, Russia, Russia. Nothing on tax reform, nothing on health care reform.
You're the ones that want to talk about Russia because y'all want to relitigate an election you lost.
Now, see, this is where, Hallie,
we're talking about moving the country forward. You want to drag us back, put Hillary Clinton back on the stage.
This is where the apologists for Donald Trump, like I said, sound like Baghdad Bob. You're talking about 17 intelligence agencies said that the Russians meddled to help elect Trump. You have a special counsel that's been appointed by the current Deputy Attorney General. And my brother would sit here and make you believe that all that's going on because Democrats are upset at the election. It's ludicrous.
All right, hang on, guys. Time out for a second, because I want to ask you, and Dallas, I want to ask you specifically about some of the people who support President Trump, because the Detroit Free Press went out, talked to some supporters in Michigan over the weekend, referring to all of these stories. There's one person that says, quote, he causes a lot of his own problems, but I don't think he's getting a fair shake. As he said, it's a witch hunt. He never got a fair shake right from the get-go. You've got another who says he's the president of the United States. He should be able to say whatever he wants to say. Leave the man alone. Let him do his job. I know that you agree with what these supporters are saying, but how long does that benefit of the doubt last, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think the Republicans, like any administration, have to achieve some important policy goals and advance the mission of the party and the country. So you think if some of these policies don't move forward, then maybe the benefit of the doubt starts to erode if we don't see movement on health care and taxes? Well, I mean, I think it's our job to deliver. I mean, I think that's the case of any political party, and I think we're going to do that. I will tell you this, that this weekend in the coast of North Carolina, we have our Republican convention. Kellyanne Conway's coming down, registrations through the roof. Republicans are excited about the Trump administration, and they like him, talking tough overseas, getting other NATO people to try to belly up to what they owe, and showing that America has some backbone again. I think they are thrilled with his overseas performance this past week. Brad, as Dallas is talking about Republican enthusiasm, though, specifically the base for the president here, is that a concern for Democrats? You've got a president whose nationwide approval rating is just in the high 30s, but it doesn't seem to be breaking through. Should Democrats be more concerned about that?
Well, look, like you said, he's got a approval rating lower than any president at this point in his presidency in modern times, and there is proof in some polling that his base is beginning to erode. But I'll agree with Dallas on this, that where the rubber will meet the road, two things. One, the course of this Russia investigation certainly seems like there's a lot there. And number two is whether or not they can get anything done. No administration in my memory has gotten less done this far in. They have not passed one significant piece of legislation. Not one. And the trip to Europe was an unmitigated
Neil
disaster.
Gorsuch is pretty significant.
You haven't passed one
Putting him
piece
on the
of
Supreme
policy,
Court is pretty
not
significant.
One, you have changed the rules in the United States Senate to do that, Dallas. You haven't passed one piece of legislation.
All right, Brad, I want to get Dallas on the record for before we could go in here, because Dallas, your state, obviously North Carolina, center of this big battle over voting rights. And I want to ask you about it because the Supreme Court ruled last week that North Carolina relied too heavily on race and redistricting. Earlier in the month, I think we talked about this, the court said it would not consider reinstating a 2013 voter ID law. So you're the executive director. Is your party still planning to put these sorts of things in place despite the consistent losses in the courts?
Well, two things, and it's kind of technical, but it's important to remember that the court did not rule on the merits of our voter ID case. They ruled on standing. So we have to fix that. And yes, North Carolina will pass another voter ID law like about another dozen states have. North Carolina voters have the same rights to install photo voter ID as the folks in Indiana, Georgia, and Virginia. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court can't make up its mind on exactly what rules they want in these redistricting issues. They change the rules constantly, so we keep having to adjust it. Unfortunately, the courts have not provided clarity on how to mix the requirement to take race into account and the prohibition against it. You can't do both.
The problem in North Carolina is that they have, with the previous court ruling said, with surgical precision, targeted African Americans. With
that
surgical
had nothing
precision,
to do with redistricting. So
with
you're
surgical,
missing cases
I'm talking
here.
I'm not. We're talking about
here.
We're talking about voting rights. We're talking about not just redistricting, but also your effort to suppress the vote of African Americans, which was well known during the election, which you got shot down for by the courts. You've used race with surgical
turnout all across the state. We had more voting hours, more voting centers.
Dallas,
those are just more garbage.
Those are just talking points. Those are talking points. Everyone knows.
No, there were actually more voting sites.
Hang on a second,
knows.
Brad. Guys, I got to cut you off here for a second. I'm going to give you, Dallas, the last word goes to you because Brad got the last word last time. I'll let you final thoughts to wrap up this segment.
That's fair.
Well, I will just say that this country seems, and especially North Carolina, to battle over these redistricting issues. And the Supreme Court has made this harder for legislatures by removing bright line rules. They need to tell legislatures what the rules are, and they will act accordingly. Right now, they are being extremely unfair to the human beings that have to perform this because they keep changing the rules after the game has already been played and the score has been recorded.
Dallas Woodhouse, thank you, Brad. I know you disagree with your brother on that one, but I appreciate